timer. Wait for the 1 second. There it is. I'm resident of Colorado for YouTube Just Saints. And now I always fight with my timer. That is my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. He's here, and we're gonna review the Night of the Living Dead remake, directed by the legendary Tom Savini. The screenplay was written by George A. Romero. John Russo, I believe, too. Also, no, John Russo, no.
George.
Oh, just George. My apologies. This stars Tony Todd, and I know a lot of people know Tony Todd from Candyman, and as you well should. But would I be out of line to say this is the movie he arrived?
Yes. I think this was the first film he had the lead in. I would have to double check, but this, for me, I remember watching this and going, hey, I like this guy. I want to see him in more stuff. And I was glad he got Candyman, but I was hoping for, he would be more of a Bruce Campbell or Jeff Combs, and then a lot of different things, which he eventually was. But yeah, this was him saying, hey, everybody, I'm over here.
I really enjoyed him playing the older Jake Sisko in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Not too many, for those who aren't familiar with Star Trek, me and Butch, we're both huge fans of Star Trek, and my favorite is Deep Space Nine. I'm sure Butch's is too. Hell of a show, and he's on it as the elder Jake Sisko, and I really thought he captured that elder character so well that every time I saw the younger Jake Sisko again, I kept seeing Tony Todd in the future.
He also played Worf's brother, Kern.
Yeah.
Hey, I got something before we get going. You have to take my word for it because it's completely faded out. But right here in the old photo album, that is my Night of the Living Dead 1990 ticket from the theater.
Nice. I believe it. Ticket subs do fade.
This was after, we did Day of the Dead. That was in 85, and it was about almost 20 years before George did another one. And I remember thinking he wasn't going to do another zombie film, and this was as close as it was going to get. So I remember, we'll go ahead and get started. I remember I was in college, and you probably weren't even born yet in 90. Were you, Joel?
90, yeah. 1990, yeah. I was born in 82.
I was in college, I think my freshman year, and I remember we had this little student lounge, and I was sitting there, and I knew the movie was coming out. I used to pick up Fangoria all the time, and they talked about it, and I was really excited for it. And we were sitting there, and the trailer came on, which if you have either of these Blu-ray, or this is the famous Australian version, or just a straight DVD, it's the trailer that's on there where they do like a little bit of flashing, and I was just like, oh my God, I already knew I wanted to see it, but it's like, oh my God, I've got to see this.
Very, very nice. My mom once had a ticket stub for They Live. She showed it to me. I said, why do you have that? She goes, well, for whatever the hell reason, your father insists on holding on to these goddamn fans.
I have. It's over here on the other part of my desk, so I'm not going to reach for it. I used to collect. If it was a movie I liked, I would save it.
Yeah.
God, now you make me want to look over there and see which one the oldest one is.
Yeah, but she showed me that the one day. She goes, listen, nobody's going to care. It's not like you're going to take this and go, my mom and pa saw They Live in this year. No, nobody cares. My mom told me that the one day. I was like, aren't you a movie fan? She goes, yes, I'm a movie fan. But it's a ticket stub. It'll be okay. She did that to me the one day. So I said, okay. This movie, however, I enjoyed the opening because of first of all, the banter between the brother and sister. They feel like a brother and sister. A little more in this one than in the original. I got to give George A. Romero credit and Tom Savini credit for changing it up a bit here. What do you think, Butch?
Yes. Technically, I guess you could say John Russo was involved with the writing of this because he wrote the original, but George kind of rewrote it. As far as I know, he's the only writer on this version. But yeah, Tom came in. Interestingly enough, if you listen to the commentary, Tom wanted to start this film in black and white and slowly add the color, but that was going to cost more money, and we all know about producers and films, and they were like, no, we can't have that. But yeah, Tom does some really great things, or George and Tom, or whoever was specifically involved with it, especially for like people like me who had seen Night of the Living Dead, was a fan of it, and so like knew where certain things were coming. Like they're at the grave, amusing things. In the original one, they're going to visit their father's grave, and this one they're visiting the mother. So I've always wondered, this is kind of the same couple. Mom died, dad died, and now mom died, and where Barbara first gets attacked in the original, we have some obviously distressed gentlemen, and and it's great. Bill Moseley is so underappreciated in everything he does. He plays Johnny in this one, and you're like, oh, okay, well, they're not going to do something. This isn't where we're going to get the jump, and you don't even get to finish that thought, because then he gets pushed to the side in the new cemetery zombie attacks, and Barbara runs away. And my favorite, it is so amazing. Barbara gets to the car, which used to be Tom Savini's car, and she sees this guy wearing a suit, and it looks like he's just kind of walking, and the wind kind of blowing. And I think it's perfect, because it's how I think when you're in a stressful situation, you kind of don't notice subtle little clues. Yeah. And then the camera comes around this guy, and the suit is completely cut up the back, because that's how they dress dead people in caskets. It's so much easier to just put the suit, clothes around them. And the guy starts walking, and he starts stepping on his suit, and it starts coming down, and you see this autopsy scar. Yeah. And it just plays against things that from the original. And I give all the kudos to George and Tom and whoever else was involved for that, because after those two scenes, you were like, okay, man, all bets are off. Yeah. Barbara's going to hopefully make it to a house. There's hopefully going to be a Ben and a Tom and Harry and Helen Cooper and all that, but you didn't know what was going to happen. And I think that was, it played it straight, but then it also it just played against your expectations and your knowledge against you. Personally, I think it was great. I know this movie didn't do that well at the box office when it came out, but I being a big George Romero fan, as far as I'm concerned, this is part of the Romero films. It's right up there. I love this film. I really do. It's a great remake.
It's one of the most underappreciated remakes of its time, and I think it needs to be more credited for being a successful remake. And just because it didn't do well in the box office, fans more recognize, horror fans, you and I, other people appreciate this film because, number one, it wasn't Psycho. It wasn't shot for shot a remake. Tom Savini did some really nifty camera work with George A. Romero's writing, and George letting Tom have the helm in here, I think, was a smart move, because he trusted Tom, and Tom was an actor too, as you well know, and so now he gets to be behind the camera. And I do agree with you, Bill Moseley is very underrated in this, though he's not known for this movie. He's so good, because he's like, you know why she's buried out here? Because she couldn't be buried in the city because it's nowhere near any beer. It's like,
but listen to Johnny and Barbara in Night 68. Mm. I wasn't, that was filmed in 67, 68. I wasn't born to a year or two after that. I don't know how brother and sisters talk back then, but I have a sister. We've gone on rides together. Me and her, me and her and her daughter, you know, my niece, and admitted we wouldn't say those specific things, but at times that's very much the conversations and the topics we would talk about. I mean, I'd like to think I'm not as crass as Bill's Mosley's Johnny, but you know, I mean, when you had a brother, you know, you can say things to a sibling you wouldn't say to other people, and it's not necessarily it would be considered rude, but you can hey, you were there, you know what it's like, and you don't have to. Well, maybe this and maybe that. So I find this dialogue,
Yeah.
well, slightly uncomfortable. I find it very convincing and very realistic.
Yeah, there was a time me one Thanksgiving, me and my brother were in one car, and in the other car was my old man, my mom, and my old man's parents. So four people in one car, me and my brother in the other, and we could see my old man and his mother uh, clearly arguing. Now we weren't in the car; we didn't know what they were saying, and my brother's like, "I'll bet you $50. It's about our cousin." I said, I'm going to tell you right now. I already know it's about our cousin. You're not taking my money today, son. So, so, so when we got that, now again, we got to my uncle's house. Yeah, it was because we found out real quick. My grandmother was arguing with my uncle, which is my cousin's dad. But so me and my brother just looked at each other. We didn't say a word because my dad turned to us and he said, "Not one goddamn word." And like, I'm not arguing with a 6'9" giant. So so that this here, yeah, I agree. You know, when you have a sibling or anybody who has a sibling, you have a very camaraderie bond, and sometimes you bicker, and sometimes there's just like this what I call cutting a promo on somebody else who isn't in the vehicle with you, like your parents or your whoever. My brother would do that often on our long trips. So again, I could understand. I get this. I relate to this so easily rewatching it again over. I mean, there's a time me and my brother took a trip to West Virginia just to get a lottery ticket, and my brother bitched the whole way there. So, so
Yeah,
I, I
yeah,
could see, yeah, I could see this. So, and it made sense. You appreciate it, and I really love the character of Barbara as well and how she gets away. I do think, again, Savini does a good job of paying tribute to the original by keeping this movie fresh in his own in a way.
yeah. That is a juggling act, and I think he does it a great job all the way through. You know, Tom was supposed to do the effects for the original night, but he got drafted and was sent to Vietnam and became a combat photographer. And he says that helped him through his PTSD after he got back doing the special effects. So I mean, it's not like Tom just suddenly showed up in 1978 and was like, "Hey, I'll do the effects." I mean, he was known. I mean, I went to CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, so he has a pedigree. You know, he has as much a pedigree as else. So
What what did you think of? Because again, this movie does differ a lot. What did you think of the characters inside the house? I really love Tony Todd's entrance in this. Well, first of all, what did you think of his entrance into the film?
it's amazing because they have that dummy set up, and he hits it with the truck, and it just goes flying, and you're like, that is the way to introduce a character. I think it was Roger Corman said he always, whenever when they were doing the Vincent Price Poe flicks, he wanted the camera to just zoom in on Vincent super quick, and that's kind of what they do here with Ben. And what's kind of funny, I've seen this movie multiple times. I don't know, I probably watch it multiple times a year, though it's been a little while, and I didn't think about it till this time. He hits the zombie. He's in a truck at the house, the farmhouse they're going to be at. He gets out, and he has a crowbar, and Tom shoots it. You see basically his lower legs, his shoes, and the crowbar, and I was like that's almost prophesying, if you will, his appearance as Candyman, because he's got that hook hanging down. It just amused me very quickly. But Tony Todd shows up. Let's mention Patricia Tallman as Barbara, who does a great job. But Tony Todd shows up as Ben, and Ben is the best character. Dwayne Jones is the best actor in the original Night, and I think Tony Todd is. And I'm not trying to insult anybody here, but I think Tony Todd is the best actor in this. He has that quiet rage at times. I was thinking something I hadn't really noticed before. Our mutual friend Patrick McRae and I had talked about how Avery Brooks as Captain Sisko in Deep Space Nine, when he got angry, he would start to whisper, which until I turned the captions on TV, sometimes that would annoy me because I didn't know what he said. Tony Todd does it a few times here. When he's talking after they've cleared the house and it gets dark, and he's talking about, they light a fire, and he's like, people were talking on the radio, usual stupid talk. He just, I tell you, Joel, and yes, I'm gonna praise Tony Todd that he has passed. Where we decided kind of this a little bit as a tribute, but by the same token, he's just electrifying in this role. I mean, and I don't mean like he's standing there and he's like, doing the crazy stuff. It's just, it's acting, and it draws in. Ben was probably, if Ben had kids, which I always presumed he did, he was probably a demanding father, but not a mean one. He wanted you to do your best. He was, I guess this is a little bit crazy to say this. He was like a 20th century Captain Sisko, in my opinion. He has a similar feel to him, and I hadn't really thought about it until this, but Avery Brooks and Tony Todd, at least in their approach, seemed to be similar. I mean, they were serious gentlemen. They were there to do their thing. That don't mean they were mean and rude, but I mean, I've heard more than once the crew of DS9 talking about how they would joke around a little bit more when Avery wasn't there, but Avery was there to do his job. He's an actor, and Ben is the same way.
Yeah, Avery Brooks was somebody who was, took his job, seriously as an actor. I mean, he messed up a scene once where he accidentally hit the guy who was playing the main villain by the end at Deep Space Nine, and he goes almost, he yelled for help. He goes, help! I knocked the guy out. So Avery Brooks was somebody who was a perfectionist, probably, and a lot of actors are. I mean, so Tony himself, yeah, I agree with you. He does whisper when he gets getting angry, and when he gets loud, it sort of shocks you, but to the point of view, he has your attention. When he's yelling at the man who comes up from the basement, and he's like, "Look, I don't like you, and you probably don't like me." But here we are, and we're in this house together. Because they say, why didn't you guys come up? Didn't you hear us yelling? And you could have been one of those sins. And the one guy who's wearing the Steelers hat says, "No, we heard the woman screaming. We're sorry. We didn't come up." I love the Evans City shout out in this. And for those who don't know, because I live in PA. Evans City is an actual city in Pennsylvania. I've been there. My sister-in-law used to live there. So it's
back when I drink alcohol, I always wanted to try it. I don't know I think I've mentioned this to you, but if I haven't, I'm allergic to alcohol. I can't. If I drink, I mean, it don't even make it to my throat before I throw it up. So, but I always wanted to just try it. Especially because we see that in Dawn of the Dead. We see that Iron City beer with the old Pop Tarts, Pop Tops, not Pop Tarts.
Yeah.
Just to, I have one. So, yeah, I had one. I mean, it's beer. I'm sorry, I'm gonna piss a lot of people off. It's beer. Beer tastes like beer. beer.
I've never had a beer. I can't say that I have.
What?
No,
Never beer?
never had a beer. Never had a cigarette.
You're not missing anything. That really pissed me off. All five of the people that watch these videos that when I'm in them, I just made them all mad. I never was a beer person in my drinking days. I would drink like, my choice was Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'd be out with friends and be like, let's go get a beer. And I'm like, what are we, high school kids? If we're going to drink, let's drink. If we're not going to drink, I'll break out some soft drinks here. But yeah, you were talking about, let's get back the other people in the house. We got Tom Towles as Harry Cooper.
Yes.
Keith Anderson as Ellen Cooper, William Butler as Tom, and Katie Finnerman as Judah Rose, and Heather Mazur as little Sarah Cooper. Tom Towles admits he was trying his hardest to make Harry Cooper in 1990. That's always been my nickname for this film. I got that from Fangoria. Just trying to make Harry a complete jerk, and as we go through the film, we'll tell you why. But it, as weird as it sounds, in the original Night of the Living Dead, I never really got a racist vibe from the original Harry Cooper. Yeah. There was a little bit undertone, but now this one. And I mean, Tom Towles doesn't, use any racial epithets or say anything racial to it. But I feel like he does say something like, "You don't look exactly like neighbors either, Mr. Ben." Yeah. And to me, that was always, we don't allow your kind of that kind of comment. Yeah. And go ahead.
Yeah, right. No, I agree with what you said, because in the countryside of PA, you would hear that sort of slang too, because you do hear it today sometimes too. And now some people are a little more direct. I won't say what they say, and I cover my son's ears, and he's like, "Dad, why'd you cover my?" I'm like, "You don't need to hear that. That's inappropriate." And and they're like, they apologize to me. I'm like, "Look, I get, like, again, you're in a public place. You're at a barber shop. You're going to hear shit. Okay. Now, at the countryside, you would hear more of sometimes you'd hear a direct, but you would also hear stuff like that, like, "Oh, you don't look like you belong here." And that's something you do hear today, even in the countryside of PA. If you're somewhere you don't belong, you don't look like you belong here. You look like you're not from here. You hear stuff like that. Now, the second one isn't as bad. The first one, yeah, that's bad. That's bad. Yeah. So he does a really good job of playing that tone of, without saying the words, of being a bit racist a bit, and creating some racial tension between him and Tony Todd's character Ben. He does a good job of, though the zombies are your heels, he is much of a heel as the zombies are in every way. And I do give him credit because, and I give Tony Todd credit because I think Tony Todd played off of him very, very well. I think they pushed each other's buttons the right way. And when you get something like that with two actors, you get the best kind of chemistry. And that's something 1990, I feel, had more so than the original. I'll go to hell.
No, well, also, you're totally right. And I'll back you up on this. In the original Night, it was the friends and co-workers of George and John and Image 10. Not to say these people hadn't been in films, but I think they'd all been in commercials and on TV at most. I don't think, I could be wrong. Somebody might pull up in IMDb and tell me if I am. But I mean, we're not talking professional actors here. We're talking people that worked for a production company making ads and commercials and such. So, it's kind of funny if you ever see that Calgon commercial. I think it's on the Criterion Night of the Living Dead, where you see Harry Cooper and Judy in it. But but so you've got let's say not as experienced folks.
Yeah.
Whereas in Night of the Living Dead of 80, you've got people who are professional actors. Patricia Tallman had been kicking around for a while. Admitted this was really kind of her big break because it wasn't that long. I don't think Babylon 5 had started yet. It was right around this time. Bill Moseley had been around. Tom Towles had been in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, and what's funny is Bill Moseley and Tom Towles would be in House of a Thousand Corpses many years later together. But this was. But you have people whose livelihood is being an actor, and I think they pretty much all had some training. I know Tony Todd had been in a lot of theater.
Yeah.
And Trish Tomlin had been a stunt woman for a while, so I think you have more professional, and I don't say that with any insult to any of the original folks, but you had more professional actors here who bounced off of each other, like you're talking about. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of an antagonistic version of Kirk and Spock with Shatner and Nimoy, because Nimoy said, or Shatner said to Nimoy, you were that Shatner's Kirk was, kind of emotional and excited. So Spock was the straight and narrow, and they fed off of each other, just like Tony Todd and Tom Towles do here, and it works to the betterment of the film.
I think what the other cast does too, what it brings out of them too, is their emotional reactions. The wife getting smacked and not really taking it either. She doesn't just sit and take it. She's like, no, she gets away from him and she says, "Get away from me." I think one of the most disheartening and this movie also deals in heartbreak too, for as much as it does deal in hope, if you will, by the end of it, in a sense, it also deals in a lot of heartbreak, because you have the zombie turn of the daughter, because she's laying there sick, and he even says, Tony Todd, when he sees her, he says, "Hey, there's blankets upstairs. Do you want one?" And the father takes off the coat and lays it on her. And it's just, you have that raw emotion of somebody's daughter being sick. And I love how that plays out later too, when Ben's like, "Shoot it, shoot it, shoot." Doesn't refer to it as her. Great job by Tony Todd. Great job.
Yeah. It and even I'll defend Cooper a little bit here. Yeah, he's like, "That's my daughter." He doesn't. He can see that she's not right, and he knows what's going on, or at least has a pretty good idea. And actually, one of the things I read today mentioned this, and I had noticed it, but I hadn't really thought about it. You see little bits of blood on the girl's braces. Yeah. So they were pretty, they probably had a pretty good idea that Helen wasn't coming out there. So, but yeah, you could understand that. I mean, I remember after seeing the original Night in the early to mid 80s, for a while I would have these bad nightmares about, my parents, my sister, friends coming back as zombies and having to kill them. And for a long time, I mean, we're talking a few years, I had to learn to deal with that and keep telling myself, "It's just a dream, man. It's just a dream." But by the same token, after a while, I was like, if that did happen, I'd be like, "Yeah, man, if you were a zombie, I'd kill you. I'd make sure you was a zombie, but if you're a zombie, I'd kill you, and because that's not you."
Yeah, right after seeing, I've told Butch this before, right after seeing like the Night of the Living Dead movies, a neighbor of where I lived had died, and we were all very close to her. So keep in mind, I watched these movies, and look, John Carpenter didn't scare me, but George A. Romero sure as hell scared shit out of me. And I'm sitting at the funeral, and I did not want to go up because I kept thinking about the zombie. And my mom knew, she could see, and she knew why. She was watching the damn stuff with me. So she grabs my leg and like causes me to like jerk out of my chair, and she goes, "It's just a movie." So. And That's the thing. That's the beauty of it. Like when you're a kid, your mind races. But they, Tony Todd, Tom Savini did an amazing job, and Patricia Tillman, yeah, she did a great job here too. And this, you do sort of see her take some bumps and bruises in this movie, where she's put in a chokehold by one of the hillbillies because they, she was screaming. One of my, what's I'm trying to think. What did you think of the gas pump scene?
I liked it better than the original in the way it's set up and the way it goes. And it's the anybody that's seen any of the night, seen either Night of the Living Dead knows what's going to happen in that scene. So we knew what was going to happen, or we sure suspected. In the original, Judy's like, oh, my seatbelt's stuck. Oh, and that's so cringy. And I love Night of the Living Dead. Anybody that's heard me talk about it knows I love both of them.
Yeah.
So in this one, Judy's the driver. I mean, she's got some kind of like NASCAR thing going on. Oh gosh, not Johnny. Judy and Tom, the character Tom, William Butler. God bless him. Tom is dumb as a coal bucket, and if you don't believe me, I'll tell you why here in just a second. So Judy, Tom, and Ben go to gas up the truck so they can leave the house, and they get there, and I don't know what the plan was exactly, but Tom takes his shotgun to blow the lock off of the gas pump. Let me say that again as I move closer to the camera. Tom takes his shotgun or his rifle, I forget which he has, to blow the lock off of a gas pump. Better. That's all I'm going to say. God bless him, Tom. The character Tom, he meant well, and but you see it. His dumbness is apparent, and it's not that he's like willfully dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's not Gilligan intentionally destroying every attempt to get away.
Right.
It's just not real smart, and he doesn't really think. And you see him raise that gun. They've got a key. That's what it is, but it's not. It's not the right key. It's not the pump key.
Yeah,
and there's zombies around them, and I get it. It's very realistic. It's understandable the way it's directed and shown. You're like, oh, you're in a hurry. You don't really think, and then Ben and Tony Todd, another moment. Tom, what the hell are you? Bam! You don't even say doing. You're like, God. It just. Tom, the character of Tom. Oh, bless his little heart.
I like how the zombies are eating the charred remains later. Like what? But yeah, Tom is very hillbilly-ish without being complete hillbilly. He's from, I would say, because he himself doesn't necessarily always, and you can tell Tom doesn't necessarily stay on the farm a lot. He's probably only visits it every once in a while, and that's why he thinks the gas pump keys that are out of the pocket are the gas pump keys, and he turns the key. Oh, these aren't it. He says that after they fail. So even he didn't know what the gas pump keys look like because he's not at his uncle's place a lot. I think it is.
Well, even if he was, how many times was he going to their gas pump and using it? Because I'm pretty sure this is a pretty secluded place.
Yeah.
That's why they had their own gas pump. So they're probably not like, sure, Tom, fill your truck up here. We just fill it up when we need it. So yeah, but yeah, Tom is obviously, Tom is a little redneck, but whereas rednecks can be an offensive term, but that doesn't mean they're idiots. Tom is an idiot.
Yeah.
Tom could probably take an engine apart and put it back together blindfolded. I'm sure he has some talent somewhere, but Uncle Reach and Uncle Satchel were not inviting Tom over to to play chess, and drink sherry on Saturday nights or something.
Tom's a few French fries short of a Happy Meal, we'll say. That's what we'll say Tom is. Let's see. Who's your favorite character in this?
Ben.
Yeah, Ben is a good character.
With that, Barbara being a close second, because George said one of the things he always regretted was making Barbara such a useless character in the original Night. And Tom Savini picking Patricia Tallman, who was a stunt woman, and she's kind of an action chick. And George kind of moved that way, because look at Barbara in the original Night, look at Fran and Dawn, look at Lori Cardilli. I can't even think of the character's name, but the actor's name's in Day. I mean, George is moving away from all women are useless. Yeah. I mean, Barbara in this is awesome. It's just, if Tony Todd wasn't playing Ben, she would probably be my favorite character. I mean, it's pretty close.
Yeah, both characters are really great protagonists. They're very strong, and she recovers, unlike the Barbara in the original, where Barbara in the original never really recovers from the incident at the cemetery. This Barbara does. This Barbara recovers because she's experienced the shock, and now she goes, okay, I'm over this. I need to survive. And she says, she's the one who keeps running. We can just run right past them. So you can tell that, hey, this woman's right. But Ben, he's like, no, we're safe. I think we're safer here. We can board it up. But again, you have that guy who's being a very clever heel. And I like when she goes this game. He's like, give me that gun. Give me that gun. And he's wrestling another. Yeah, it's like he's gonna get receipted for this shit later.
I tell you, one of my favorite scenes with Barbara is I can't remember if they've got the TV up just yet or not, but they have some idea what's going on, and they're boarding up the house, and this really skinny zombie, and if I'm remembering my history correct, he was played by a guy who was a taxi driver that Tom Savini said, hey, you'd make a great zombie. You want to be in my film? But it's the really skinny guy, because he comes in that window, and I mean, he looks very emaciated, and she like shoots it in the heart, and she's like yelling at him. She's, is he dead? And she shoots it again. Is he dead?
Yeah.
Finally, she shoots it in the head. She says something along the lines, whatever I lost a long time ago, and I don't plan on losing anything else. And you two can yell at me, tell me how to do when you stop yelling at each other like children. Yeah. And Tony Todd has this look as in a little kid who's been spanked and sent to bed with no supper, because he's just kind of like, damn, I told her to fight, but I mean, and Patricia Tallman does such a good job in that scene, and I mean, so does Tony Todd. I mean, there's some movies. This is one of them. Watchmen is actually another. There are 3 rows you have to cast right. You have to cast Ben right, you have to cast Barbara right, and you have to cast Mr. Cooper right. Yeah. In Watchmen, you have to cast Rorschach, comedian, and Ozymandias. If you don't get these roles right, this film is not going to work. And these 3 roles in this film were cast right. I honestly don't even want to consider someone else playing Ben other than Tony Todd in this version. I mean, it's not that it wouldn't be impossible, but I just honestly can't imagine it being any better.
The only other Todd I would accept would be Avery Brooks. That would be it.
Yeah.
I mean, because who the hell else are you going to get that's going to play it that good? And Tony, you're right. The facial reactions to the actors pull off are just as important in this movie as the dialogue, if not more. A really great job by Tony Todd selling the shock. Like you said, I told you to fight. And it's like you want to take Tony Todd's, but look at what you caused. Look at what you caused. And he did. I mean, he told her to fight, and she's ready to fight now. And so
Yep.
his character sort of, his character mixed with the events brought that out of her. It's something you don't get to see in the original. And it's why even more this movie's unique. I'll tell you a part I like, and I like the part you mentioned, is the part where she does look out and say, hey, we could run right past them. We have the guns. I think that...
She says we can get right past it. She didn't even say run.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's talking, and she goes, and she looks at him, and you can see he's looking, and he's thinking, and she goes, you know I'm right.
Yep.
She is.
Yeah.
There's two, Ben and Barbara, and well, actually, now that I think about Harry, all have breaking points in this film.
Yeah.
Barbara's comes first because she. No, I take that back. Harry's comes first when Sarah comes out of the basement and she's a zombie and he won't shoot her and he can't accept it. He ends up shooting Ben because Ben is trying to shoot the zombie.
Yeah.
And then they start shooting each other. And Barbara's like, no, come on. No, Ben gets shot anyway. And she's like, come on, leave me. And he's like, no, I'm busted up. You go. And you can tell she doesn't, but she knows. Yeah, it's time. It's time to go.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll send help if I can. And she leaves, and she's walking. You know, she's just walking past. Now there's one great scene where like she has her gun out and she's walking past the zombie. I mean, she's ready to shoot it, but it doesn't ever get that close.
Yeah.
And there's one that's a woman. I think she looks like she's wearing pajamas to me and is holding a baby.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is supposed to be her baby or like, you know, her kid's baby or baby doll. Sorry, not baby doll.
Yeah.
And she walks past it, and after she gets past it, Barbara just starts crying.
Yeah.
And she's reached her breaking point. And the zombie comes up, and she like just pushes it away, and it comes up, and finally Barbara just shoots it. But it's like that night has finally got to the impact on her. And you know, as the story Stephen King tells about Carrie, that's it. She ain't never gonna be right. Barbara will never be the same after this. And Ben's breaking point comes after that. He goes down in the basement, which is where he's fought going the entire time. He knew the mother was down there and was going to turn, and he shoots her, no big deal. But he throws the gun down, and he sits down, and he puts his arm in. He takes his tie and puts his arm in like a little sling, and he turns on this radio. And George Romero's broadcasting, if you don't know that. And they actually give a date. It's August. I think it's August 28th, 1989. I could be wrong about that date, but I remember it's August because my birthday's in August. And he looks up and he sees a key that says gas pump.
Oh.
And he just looks at it and he starts laughing. And it, you know, it initially comes across as a humorous moment, but then you realize he's just broke down. This is just, what else can you do?
Yeah.
Ben has been broke, and every decision he made, unfortunately, was the wrong one. And it wasn't like he was trying to do it.
Yeah.
The basements where he had to end up, everybody got killed. Trying to get the gas got people killed. It's just like every decision he made was wrong. But God bless him. I mean, he loses it. And I remember the first time I saw this, I thought when we saw him again, later, that he would have shot himself. That's what I really thought he was going to do, because he was just broke after that.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. His breaking point down in that basement, him laughing, he knows he's going to die. I mean, he knows he's too shot up to go anywhere. And like you said, he's fought going down the basement, and last resort he does. The guy goes up into the attic. Son of a bitch. And he's smoking a cigarette. He starts laughing. And then, like you said, Romero goes, "Oh, we now believe that they're more dangerous in large groups," and he's laughing about that too. Tony Todd's character, and it's a beautiful cutaway to her when she comes back to that house and they're chainsawing open the door, and they open the door, and you see Tony Todd's character who has turned, Ben has turned, and they shoot him, and they lock eyes, a zombie and human, and she's just like, my God, you could see it.
But he doesn't lunge at her.
No, he doesn't.
I've always believed Ben is still in there.
Yeah.
And yes, he's a zombie. He's come back, but there's still a little bit. He recognized her, kind of playing into the themes with Bub and Big Daddy from Day and Land. That it's not just mindless. What is it? He says motorized instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they shoot him, and so this time the shooting of Ben is somewhat justified as opposed to the original night. Which, by the way, I don't know if I ever told you. I showed my nieces Holly and Jill the original Night of the Living Dead. God, late '80s, old VHS tape, which I wish I still had. I think it broke. And I'll never forget my niece Jill looking at it and the finishes, and she looked at me and she goes, "After he lived through all that," and that has always been the encapsulation of the ending of the original Night of the Living Dead. After he lived through all that.
Yeah.
Now you're from more northern than I am. I've always when Barbara comes along and she meets those rednecks, and Johnny's body is in the truck, and there's the real skinny looking guy, and he looks and goes, and this one guy goes, "What in the name of Jupiter's balls are you doing out here, little missy?" Is Jupiter's balls a common saying up there? That has always just been like the oddest thing to hear. I've never quite understood it.
No, here's the thing. I take it now. People are going to say rednecks, and I'm going to say no. These aren't rednecks. I live in the mountains of Pennsylvania, and mountain people have a very specific dialect at times. It doesn't always happen, but it will just happen out of nowhere. Verbiage that you've never heard, but you'll hear from them. And that's something I could see a mountain person saying, who my father-in-law has lived up here his whole life. And he says stuff that I've never heard from anybody else in my life that I'm like, I've never, and I start laughing. I'm thinking, he goes, "What are you laughing about? I'm just talking." I'm just like, okay. So you do hear that, but so I think the people who you're hearing aren't necessarily hillbillies. They're mountain people from Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania is a very odd state for anybody who ever visits here. It's cities, but it's also city, rural, city, rural, city. You can go from being in the city 1 second and literally being rural in the next second. It's that crazy. Unless you get into the mountains where it's a lot, you see houses, but for every house, you'll see vast open fields of rural PA and woods. There's a difference there, and you will see a large farmland. But dialect, it's like when you go to Pittsburgh, people say people from Pittsburgh have a certain dialect. Well, parts of PA, people have certain dialect. In Pittsburgh, they call it, I forget what they call it, but there's like a special verbiage there. In the mountains, people here have a special verbiage. I'm not from the mountains. I'm from the city. So when I first heard it, it was odd to me. Like I had forgotten that scene you're talking about till you just brought it up, even though I just watched it today. And then when you brought up, I instantly thought of one person, my father-in-law. And again, another person too who used to live here down the road would speak the same way. People from here just seem to speak differently. I'm not saying they speak weird. They don't. You can understand them and when they talk, but they will say something not quite to that effect, but close in the sense of I understand why that got said. Sorry for the long-winded.
Yeah. No, you were describing it, and I was just thinking of my grandmother, my dad's mother. I live in East Tennessee, which is similar to what you're describing. I mean, we got the Appalachians there with the Smoky Mountains, and yeah, I was thinking that I was using I kept saying in my head, hillbillies, yeah, hillbillies. And my grandmother had some of the oddest expressions, and she used to always call pants breeches, but she had this weird inflection on it that I can't duplicate without sounding like I'm making fun of her. And she's passed away, and I don't, I'm not trying to make fun of my grandmother. And I used to always hate it. She'd be like, "You get your breeches," and I'm like, "My pants." I hated that. And then when I got a little bit older, I was reading about knights and stuff, and talking about how the armor and everything. And that's where I learned where the term breeches come from. And her inflection was more breeches than breeches. But yeah, I mean, she had a few. She talk about people getting above their raisin and things like that. And so yeah, I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying. Slightly different, but
I told you this. My grandfather was from Whitwell, Tennessee, and he would say, "You got your drawers on?" And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. Mama, we called her Mama. Mama would say the same thing, and I'd just be like, "Underwear, please." Drawers. And my dad, now he'll do it mostly for comedic effect, but he'll be like, "Well, get your drawers on, let's go." And he got that straight from his mother. And my mom, God bless her, she would before she was gone, she would say like, "God, Larry, yes, I'm putting my clothes on, but just don't say that." And that's why he would say it. That was him razzing her a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jupiter's balls thing that just always just struck me as a little weird. It's, I don't know about up there. Down here, they're most of the rednecks or hillbillies or whatever term you want to use, and I'm not necessarily meaning those as offensive terms. They're uniquely, I guess, or are inherently kind of Christiany. So Jupiter is an odd thing for them to reference. I remember I've had a habit of calling Thursday Thor's Day since I was a kid when I read it in an encyclopedia. That's where the word comes from, if you don't know. That's where all the days of the week come from. They have various pagan associations. Sunday, Moon Day, Twice Day, Woden's Day, Thor's Day, Freya's Day, Saturn's Day. And I've, grew up reading Thor comics that I've called Thor's Day for decades.
Yeah.
And I remember I was at a friend's house and I said something about Thor's Day, and some woman going, "This is a Christian household and we don't use those page." And I think she said either pagan or heretic. Heretic is a big word for around here, but we don't use those pagan names, those pagan terms. It's like, do you not know where the word comes from? No, she didn't. She didn't care, but so there's always something weird, weirdness. And I my entire life I've lived here, and I'm like, I don't ever feel like I belonged here.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. So let me make sure I get the name right because I don't want to butcher it. Yeah, Tom Towers is Harry Hooper. Most justified kill in a movie, you think?
It is. That's what I was referencing. We'll get to his comeuppance. That's why he was playing it. So, Barley, she said Barbara and some of her friends, new friends, come into the house. They end up getting taking care of the Ben zombie, and Harry comes down and he like reaches at Barbara, and you think it's a zombie because you don't see him, and he's like, you came back. Now, let me get your opinion on this. There's at least a few days in between Barbara leaving and her coming back to the house. I would say at least 3 days, maybe more. The movie kind of gives you the thought that it's the next morning, but I don't buy that. I feel like it's a couple of days at least.
No, I don't think it's the next morning either, because she goes a good distance, and I'm gonna give it at least a good 2 days, because again, Pennsylvania, because I'm trying to map this out as Pennsylvania too, is very fucking weird. You can get some places seem farther than what they are, and some places seem closer than what they are, especially in this goddamn fucking state. but so I'm going to give this at least 2 days. She arrives later, and it's in it because, and maybe it is 3. You might be right. I would more lean toward you on this than me, because
it's not the next.
Yeah, it's not the next day. I agree with you there, because he's like, you came back. He's shocked she came back. It's like, motherfucker. I said that too when I watched that again. I said, motherfucker, she told you she'd be back.
She told Ben she'd be back. She didn't tell him. And he's like, yeah, you came back. You came back. And she's like, first she's shocked because she's surprised that Cooper left. And then she's like, Ben's dead because of you. And she bam, puts him on right there. And she uses the great line from the original Night, one more for the fire.
Yeah.
But that's what Tom Towles was trying to do. He wanted Cooper to be an irredeemable asshole. What's the term? Heel? Is that the term? The wrestling term?
Yeah, heel.
Especially in this version. Maybe not quite as much in the original. To me, in the original, Ben and Harry just have different views on what to do, and I don't think you can really say either one is wrong or right, not knowing what's going on. I mean, this is the first night this crap has happened, so nobody knows the rules. But here, Harry Cooper is a jerk. And yeah, if he's not the most justifiable, he is on the list, buddy.
He is. He's one of the best heels in horror history. And he deserves that credit. And I give him a lot of credit for being the heel. And most justified kill in a horror movie is his character. He did a great job. Him and Tony Todd did a great job playing off each other. They both deserve credit. And yeah, Patricia Tallman's character coming back. I mean, she puts on the bravest face. Like you said, every character has a breakdown moment. This movie's at 10, straight up. I mean, the original is a good movie, but this movie is great as well. And that's tough to say with remakes at times.
I want to mention Tom Towles' range. If you've never seen Rob Zombie's best flick, The Devil's Rejects, of course, you kind of need to watch House of a Thousand Corpses to get the meaning.
I've seen it.
But, I knew you had, but I was talking for the viewers.
Oh, sorry.
Tom Towles is in House of a Thousand Corpses, and spoiler alert, he gets killed at the end. Well, in the sequel, Devil's Rejects, we have his brother, Sheriff John Quincy Wydell, who is like the badass monster hunter of them all. God, I love Sheriff Wydell. But he's asleep, and he has a dream with his brother, played by Tom Towles from the first film, because they're at the bad guy's house, and Sheriff Wydell's like, "Well, why are you here?" And Tom Towles is like, "Because I can't leave." And the implication to me has always been that this is not a dream. This is his spirit, his soul. He can't move on, and that's one of the reasons that Sheriff Wydell is just pulls out all the stops to stop the Sawyer family. But Tom Towles does such a good job in that sequence of just being pitiful without being pitiful, sympathetic without being sorry. And it's just, to me, it's just, wow. wow. I remember thinking, God, that's Harry Cooper from Night 90.
Yeah.
And he does such a good job of it. Excuse me.
There are actors who just have such great range. Yeah. I mean, I believe you. It's amazing. Let's see. I have no more questions. Is there anything you want to add before we get?
Well, I told you I had something special, and even Jewel hasn't seen this, so everybody watch his faces up. This
Ooh,
is 1990, the version you've never seen before, by Tom Savini.
nice.
These are the now before you think it like I do, you think it's a book. These are the sequence. What are they? What's the sequence? The stage boards. This is the film. This is what Tom Savini wanted to do.
Nice.
And Tom has said that making this film was the worst experience of his life because when George wasn't there, there were two other producers who were apparently new to producing, and they made his life hell. But you can see some of these scenes in the deleted scenes on the DVDs. But if you've ever wanted to know what really went, really, I mean, you there's nothing in here that you're going to go, oh my God, that's what really happened. But you see the full sequences of what Tom wanted to do.
Yeah.
And God, I wish they'd just shut up and let Tom make the film he wanted to make.
Mhm.
But also, Tom says, the MPAA saw George Romero and Tom Savini's name on it, and they were there with the scissors. Nope, we gotta cut that.
Um,
That's
I
part of what
believe,
hurt this film.
yeah, I believe that too. Another one they hurt too was Friday the 13th Part 7. Cut out all the blood. Sons of bitches.
Yeah, I mean, I at that point in 1990, I feel like I can say this as a horror fan and reading Fangoria and Gorezone and every other horror magazine that came out. At that time, you had to have some gore. You had to have some scenes like that, and this poor movie was pretty much destroyed of that. And not that you can't tell the story without it, but Night of the Living Dead is the original. It's the end of the Universal films. It's the end of the Hammer films. It's the end of the Gothic, and it's the beginning of the new generation, the next generation, if you want to be cute. At Night, the original Night, everything was different after that.
Yeah.
You couldn't, not say you couldn't make a Gothic film, you couldn't make a Universal or a Hammer type film, but you had to make it a little bit differently after that. So when you make one of the greatest horror films of all time, and one that's known for some groundbreaking scenes, people are expecting it. I remember I was like, oh my God, Tom Savini directed this, man. And they're going to be running around in blood, and there's not a whole lot of blood, really.
No.
They the poor man, and I always, if you ever see Tom Savini talk about this, there's a few videos on YouTube, or at least there used to be. You end up just feeling so sorry for him because he was so excited. I really think Tom was wanting to move away from special effects. I think he wanted to move into directing more.
Yeah.
And he saw this as, okay, here's my shot. And due to various influences, it didn't pan out for him. And kind of makes me sad because this is a damn good film.
Yeah, it is.
Especially if you've seen the original, you should appreciate this. I've read people online, well, I love the original, but I don't like that one. I'm like, how?
Why?
How can you not like it? I mean, I know different strokes, different folks, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know what else you could do.
I think Tom did a really great job of making this movie his own, despite the producers trying to put him in constant headlocks. And the movie is perfect. I mean, literally, I mean, from start to finish, and that's something that Tom should hang his hat on, because that's again, there's movies you can't say that about. There's a lot of movies you can't say that about. So.
Have you seen this version? This is the region-free Blu-ray from Australia. I believe it's Umbrella is who put this out. I'm not sure how available it is anymore.
I don't believe so. I've seen the other. I've seen.
Oh my God, Joel! This wow, it's gorgeous. I mean, it gets during the daylight sequences, in the graveyard, and when they first get to the house, and where Barbara's running. Wow, for a nearly 35-year-old film, how does that make you feel old? I was in college, and this movie came out, and it was 34 years ago. But it just is gorgeous. There's a Blu-ray that was put out in the United States. I've been told the color is off on it. So that's one of the reasons a friend of mine on Facebook, Lawrence DiVincenzo, or however you say his name again. My apologies, Larry, if you see this. He told me about this, and he would post. I hate to say it, he's the one guy I would always default to. If he said something about Dawn of the Dead that I didn't agree with, I'd still okay. Listen, Larry, he knows more than I do, because I used to think I knew everything about it. But he told me about this, and I was lucky enough to pick it up. And if you like this movie and you want to see it, in a beautifully restored and remastered version, I mean, I watched it on I forget how big our TV is. I think it's 60 something. Blu-ray, PlayStation 5 upscale. God, it was gorgeous, just utterly gorgeous. So, if you get a chance to pick that up, I recommend it. Don't pay like a ton of money, but if you see it, not a bad price, pick it up. I recommend it. It's a gorgeous film. It's got, as far as I know, all the special features from the DVD and maybe a couple more. So if you're a fan of it, pick that one up. That's the version to pick up.
Cool. I will eventually. I'll get there too. I gotta beg my wife. Oh God.
Christmas is coming. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Cool. Come on.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. That was good. Yeah, this movie is a straight 10. Go check it out if you haven't. It is a true masterpiece. And Tom Savini, thank you for directing this. This was really, 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 really an amazing movie. What do you want to do in 2 weeks?
It's your call, buddy. It's your turn.
That's right. It's Butch, I'm gonna apologize in advance for the movie I'm about to pick. So I am sorry. But I want you to know you're gonna have Thanksgiving, so you're gonna be able to enjoy that with ease. We're gonna do the Friday the 13th remake. Anyway.
Sure hope I'm sick in 2 weeks.
Get a message. I'm not feeling well. I'm going to start asking questions. What do you mean you're not? How well are you not feeling now? Butch, you and Jill and your family, enjoy Thanksgiving, buddy. Stay safe.
You too, buddy. Take care, everybody up there.
Bye.
See ya.